So tonight we'll have with us Ms. Sharmini Chellapandi and Ms. Joy Low to share about National Library's music materials, including handwritten scores, iconic magazines, as well as other works by music personalities and prominent groups. A little bit about our speaker. Sharmini manages the arts team, which encompasses literary, visual, and performing arts. She enjoys reading and listening to music and has discovered a wealth of published and unpublished treasures since joining the National Library. She's also authored a book entitled What a Stupid Question, written partly to satiate a curiosity about the world. And the next speaker, Joy Low, is an associate librarian with the National Library. She manages and develops the library's performing arts collection and oversees the Digital Active Music Digital Archive Music SG. She also has an interest in the study of metaphysics. So please welcome our librarians tonight.
Thanks, Ashif. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making your time here today. I know it was raining earlier, so it's a good thing it stopped. And for those of you who are not stuck in the East-West Line train fault, good news, isn't it? Okay. I'm Sharmini, and this is Joy. We're both from the arts team here at the National Library. We were not sure whether to walk, sit, dance, or whatever, because, the arts team, you're quite, can't sit still, right? Yeah, but so we'll try and sit down. But I assure you, you're going to give your eyes a bit of a workout today. Because I've got to use my reading glasses. I've reached that age, so, don't mind me. I suppose before we actually go further into the talk today, I want to actually share with you something. Okay, do all of you know what librarians do? This is the librarian's world after all, but do you know what we do? We don't stamp or chop books anymore. That's like so last century. Anyone? The answers are up there actually. Yeah, so besides giving talks like this or doing tours, we do a fair bit of research and writing, for like Biblio Asia, which some of you can, we have some issues there, it's free for you to take later, hopefully that's enough. On the right, the left are library books, you can't touch those, you see? Okay, so we do a lot of different things, and I think I've been to the library for many years actually, but over here for 4 years, but I always tell people that there's never a boring day. We always do something different. Because for people like us who love to read, like to find out about the world, it's just fun. Every day you're researching and finding out new things. So it's quite fun, and today we actually get to share about music, Singapore music. I don't know that much about Singapore music, but we'll try, and we'll learn together. So this is just to share with you a bit of what we do. Just to give you a sense of what we'll be talking about. The first part will be music made in Singapore, or what we think of it. It's a very, very brief landscape of it. And then after that, we'll have an overview of our arts resources, where we also will be zooming into Music SG, which is our music portal. And Joel will actually do a quick walkthrough of that. And another highlight would be the music resources that we have in the library. So it could be the magazines that we have, the books, or special donations that we receive from prominent musicians. So we'll try to cover all of these things very quickly, because today's session, as I said, is going to be quite a very quick, very short session. Okay, without further ado. Okay, so music made in Singapore is actually a very tough question. I really don't know what is Singapore music. I've done some research, I was reading about it. What is Singapore music? Joseph Peters, who is a musicologist, even asked this, it's like, very little is written about Singapore music. Why? Is it because of our size? Are we so small that there's nothing written about it? I don't think so. So he asked about this in some published papers, some of his papers that he published. Is it because we are just so diverse, so many different language groups, different ethnic groups, community groups, that it's just, where do you start? All right, so that could possibly be one of the reasons. A lot of the other ethnomusicologists active in Singapore, like Eugene Daryanathan, like Lee Tong Song, and they have published, and in their research, they've also alluded to this to some extent, to say, what is Singapore music? Where do you start? We know, like in the colonial times, when the British were in power here, and a lot of the European people, different countries, was set up shop here. We have found through research in the Straits Times, early editions of the Straits Times, say from the late 19th century, early 20th century, a lot of music was happening here, but a lot of it was Western music. So we had like music troupes, we had like folks traveling around the region who will come here. The hotels around this area. In fact, this area in the past was quite happening. We had like Hotel Europe, Raffles Hotel, Hotel de la Paix, all kinds of hotels, and they used to have regular features of orchestras, European orchestras coming to perform. So we know within that community, these things were happening. But what about within the indigenous communities or the Asian communities here? Not much was written, because back then Straits Times was, run by the British, so a lot of it was talking about what's happening in the British community. But of course, increasingly there's some research being done, a lot of oral history interviews with the community groups, and slowly things are coming up. But right now, a lot of the research, documentation, even the books that I brought out here, a lot of them will talk about things happening primarily from the Western perspective. And even when we talk about music in Singapore, they'll just say, oh, it started when the British came. So before that, I'm sure there was something, but it's just that it wasn't very well documented. So for today, I'm not going to talk about that too much, but like I said, where do I start? Whose story do I tell? Which genre, which practice or tradition do I talk about? In fact, that leads me to my next slide, a very profound question. Apa itu music? That's not by me, that's by Encik Yusno F. Have any of you heard of him? Yusno F. He has been a strong, very respected figure in the local music scene, particularly in the Malay music scene. He was a long-time president of Perkamus, which is the Association for Malay Musicians and Composers and so on. So he's been around for a long time. And since the 50s, he's still around. He's an amazing guy. He's a songwriter, music advocate. And even he wrote an article about the development of music, Malay music from the 50s to the 90s. And this was the question he had asked. Apa itu music? Right? And you can see, somebody who was really part of the scene, really had no idea. So how do you define music? And this was within the Malay community. So you can imagine, if they themselves had difficulties trying to define within the community, can you imagine Singapore, the largest Singapore, with its, potpourri of sounds and languages and everything? So therein lay the challenge, really, because where do you start? So I'm actually leaving you more questions than answers, because I have no answers. I think that's the beauty of it, because all of us come with different things to the table. We have our own backgrounds, our own interests in Singapore music, and maybe let that be the starting point. We can go backwards or forwards or do a comparison. And later on, I'll be sharing with you some of the resources that we have, and hopefully that will help you in that discovery of Singapore music. So these are just two of the books that I might recommend. They're here on the table. I'm quite tempted to walk there, but I will do my exercise later, okay? The first one is the Southeast Asian music. It's like this anthology, different chapters that covers music in Southeast Asia. As you can see, a lot is written about, say, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia. It's mainly traditional music, but the chapter on Singapore is a little bit schizo because you just don't quite know how to approach Singapore music. But at least there is a chapter on that. So maybe you could read that book to have a sense of music vis-a-vis the region. The Singapore Soundscape, again, it's a collection of different chapters that talks about really the soundscape, the landscape of Singapore music from the colonial period to the present. And what they have attempted to do is to maybe break it up into three different streams. One is the traditional classical type of music, like the Chinese orchestra, Chinese opera, Western classical. Then you have things like popular music, pop, the different languages, English, Malay had mud rock. And then for Chinese, you had Sinyao. And then you had like the institutional music, so you had like National Day songs and the festivals and all that stuff. So maybe that gives us a good understanding also of this whole Singapore landscape. So I would recommend these two books actually. We have them in the library, and Joy didn't tell you, it's actually online as well as an ebook.
I'll tell them later.
Oh, okay, sorry. So we have an ebook version as well, if you can't get your hands on the actual physical copy. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this slide and the next few slides is just to give you a bit of a signposting of what we have here, or also what we can access from home. Next slide, please. Okay. So essentially, this is the National Library. Are you all familiar with this place? No? Okay. You know that downstairs, the basement is the lending library, right? Central Public Library. This building is called the National Library Building. Upstairs, level 14, is our corporate headquarters. In between is the reference arm of the National Library, which is called the Lee Kong Chian Reference Library. And that's where we have a lot of really amazing stuff. Singapore-related books, all our heritage materials, plus a very, very wide range of reference books. So in terms of music resources, you can come to our floor, which is level 8. That's where we have all the social sciences, humanities, and the arts. Arts resources are there in magazines as well. If you want a similar type of topic, but in Chinese, Malay, and Tamil, you head up to level 9. We have those. And if you want to get hold of non-book versions of things like your scores, like your CDs, posters, ephemera items, right? You can head on to level 11, or rather head up to level 11. That's our Singapore and Southeast Asia collection. So that's where the ephemera items are placed in Singapore music as well. All right, so this is just to give you a sense, how to orientate yourself if you're looking for physical items related to Singapore arts resources. And then the next part of it will be the digital resources that we have. This portal is called NORA, short form for National Online Repository of the Arts. It was set up, I think, about 10, 12 years ago together with the National Arts Council. And it actually has digitized items of literary, visual, and performing arts. Quite iconic works from our cultural medallion recipients. In fact, we have more than 30 profiles from the various CMR winners, cultural medallion recipients. We have things like resource guides, interviews, photos, some of the digitized like manuscripts, pictures, and so on. So lots of things. So if you're interested in Singapore arts, this is one place you can visit, all right? And you can access from home. The easy way is go to Dr. Google, right? You just type in Nora space NLB, you should get that. But we have the proper URL in the slides further on. And the next part here is a dedicated portal, also by the National Library, on Singapore music. And to run through this is our music librarian, Joy.
Thanks, Sham. Can I just have a show of hands? Who here has heard of Music SG? Okay, great. So I see like there is a slightly greater majority that has not yet heard of this archive. So let me take the opportunity to share more with you. Music SG is a non-profit archive set up by the National Library Board to digitize, archive, and provide access to published Singapore music works. And we collect content in a variety of formats, including recordings, research articles, biographies, lyric scores, and many more, and I'll elaborate more in the next few slides. So the main objective of this is really part of our nationwide initiative to preserve our heritage, not just books, but also music and arts. So what do we have in Music SG? This is just a snapshot of our content statistics. We have over 19,000 items in our archive, many of which are recordings, so you can go online, explore, and listen to some music. We also have many scores, some of which belong to very notable personalities, such as Alex Abishganathan, the late Iskandar Ismail, and many other prominent musicians like Dr. Kelly Tang, Dr. Bernard Tan, etc. If any of you here are musicians and you ever publish music, please look for us and donate your materials to us, and we definitely want to put it into Music SG, okay? Okay, so now let me go through the website quickly with you to give you a quick tour. Okay, so this is the landing page of Music SG, and on the right-hand side, you can actually see a number of highlights, and the first of which is actually a free e-copy of Singapore Soundscape. And you click on this link and you can download it. Like I mentioned earlier, you cannot actually buy the book anywhere else because it's not for sale. So this, if you can't get a physical copy tonight, then please go ahead and download the free e-copy. Okay. So basically, it's very user-friendly. You can just type in any artist that you're searching for, like for example, Dick Lee, and click enter. Okay. Then you can narrow down your search by the different filters we have. For example, artists. You can click on his profile here. Okay, so anyway, it will look like this once it loads. So you can see a short profile of him and then all the albums that are tagged to his name. And then you can just click on the track, and then it will bring you to the track detail page where you can actually stream the music. Okay, so as you can see, we have information like the album insert, which we scanned and put it available online for you to see. You can just click view album insert, and then it will load into a PDF page. Then over here at the top, there will be a streamer that you can click play. Yeah. And then you can listen to music on the spot. Okay. So if you do not have a specific artist in mind, you can definitely just browse by the 20 over genres of music that we have available in our archive. So what I did was to click on the music tab over here, okay? It's over at the right, top right-hand corner, and then you can take a look at the variety of genres we have at the top. Click on it, and then they will auto-load some artists and tracks. Okay. You can explore further this way. In addition, we also have research articles, over 100 of them available here. These include topics such as artist profiles, genres, music genres, and we also have the history of music in here. So feel free to just open the links, and then they will download into a PDF onto your website, and you can read for more information. And if you ever want to get in touch with us, donate your music, or perhaps your collection of Singapore music, your private collection, you can always write into us through this Contribute tab, and we'll be very happy to hear from you. Last but not least, we also have some infographics over here, which you can click and open and download. So these are just very colorful images, snapshot picture of certain topics of music. We have about 10 of them available for free download. Yeah. So if you just want a quick information bite on Singapore music, you can feel free to look at this tab and download the information there. As mentioned earlier, we have a very, very beautiful collection of music in Music SG, spanning over 20 genres, such as Singapore campaign music, or local musicals like Beauty World. We also have national campaign songs like Count on Me Singapore, Stand Up for Singapore. We also have independent music, such as music by artists Jack and Ray, Inchtra, the Sam Willows, which some of you, the younger crowd, might be familiar with. We also have popular artists like Dick Lee, Kit Chan, and Tanya Chua, as well as Stephanie Sun. So please do go online to explore further. And just to give you a sneak peek of what goes on in the back end before we put the music up available online for streaming, we actually have to go through a very tedious process of copyrights clearance. So basically, when we receive a CD, for example, you might be familiar with how the content is formatted. For example, in one album, you might have more than 10 songs, right? And each song would have a different composer, and lyricist, and performer. So we need to actually make a note of who all these contributors are, and then we email them to seek their copyrights clearance, composer, lyricist, publisher, as well as music recording companies. So it's actually a very, very labor-intensive job at the back end before we make the music available online. And due to various copyrights restrictions, like, for example, some publishers, they might not want us to stream their music because it's commercially available. So because of that, some of the tracks can only be streamed for 30 seconds online. But if you come to the library, they're available for full streaming. Yeah. So we invite you to come to our library, use the multimedia stations. We also have a wide variety of scores available, including traditional tunes like Dayong Sampan and Chan Mali Chan. And we also have Sing Yao music scores, and also classical music scores. So it really is a very wide collection of content, and there's bound to be something that you might have in mind that you might want to try and find it online. Okay, so I'll pass it on to Sharmini to continue with the highlights.
Okay, so Joy, well, that was very interesting actually. She talked about this major highlight music actually, that portal that we have. We've digitized a lot of things, not just music tracks, but so many other formats and things. Apart from that, like I said, Singapore music is so hard to define, right? It's this massive, very delicious buffet table. But so now I'm just going to pick out 3 parts from that, right? Like, since I like to eat food. Okay, so music of the 60s. Do you remember, or do you know of any bands from the 1960s? And I'm talking about English popular music here. Anyone? You don't have to betray your age or anything, doesn't matter. Okay, well, anyway. The English popular music around that time, 1960s, is post-independence, right? A lot of it, is like copycat of the Western music styles. It's not copycat, it's not used in a bad way. It's just basically a lot of them had Western musical heroes, so they modeled their music after them, right? So we had Wilson David, who was known as the Elvis Presley of Singapore. Don't have to nod if you don't want to nod, it's fine. Then we had like Patricia Pestana, I'm not sure if you've heard of her. She was like the Connie Francis of Singapore. Then we had Rahim, I forgot his surname now, Rahim's father, and not Nadia, Ramli. That's Ramli Sarip, right? Separate, okay. So he was known as the Nat King Cole of Singapore. So a lot of these people, they created the music, they composed music, emulating their Western heroes, but they created kind of like a Singaporean, a local flavor to it. Bands that were popular then, we had the Crescendos, you may not have heard. We've got their stuff from Music SG. They were the first local act to be signed to an international label, Philips, in 1963, which was like quite awesome, right? Then we had this other band, The Quest. I think Joy showed you a picture earlier. The Quest, they were arguably the most popular local band in Singapore. They won the Talent Time in 63. I talk as if I know so much, right? I was not born at that time yet. Okay, anyway, The Quest. So they were signed by EMI in 1964. And do you know what? They were the first local band to top the local charts. That was in the 60s. And they stayed there for a very impressive 12 weeks. And do you know who they knocked off the top spot? Can you guess? No prizes, but can you guess? The Beatles. Can you imagine a local act beating the Beatles off number one chart? That's that massive, isn't it? The quest. So it's really interesting. And we have some books here. I'll walk now. Okay, we have like Apache over Singapore. We have Beyond the Tea Dance. Some of you might remember tea dances from a long time ago. We even have this thing called Golden Venus. It's this nightclub. I never heard of it actually. Golden Venus that was in Orchard Hotel. And a lot of local bands performed there. So these books are very interesting because really they give you this snapshot into the music scene in the 60s. There were interviews, profiles of the musicians and the bands. And I found it interesting because, you know, the things that they wore back then was like so cool. The women are all very sexily dressed up. The guys all must have their shades and everything. So it was really, really cool. So in a sense, beyond the music history and everything, you also get to see snapshots of Singapore society, right? And how we have evolved or maybe how we developed over the years. So do have a look. After the talk, you can come and have a look at these books. Okay, so that's for 60s music. I'm going to move on to the next one. Oh, I'm going to go back there. Okay. Big O. Have you guys heard of Big O? Yes, right. I actually had this, you know, before. It's all gone. But it's, I'm so glad it's in the National Library. I used to collect this. Okay, you know my age now. Okay, anyway. So not because of Beastie Boys or your Depeche Mode or whatever, but they actually, Big O, it's Before I Get Old, it was set up by Philip and Michael Chia. The two brothers, they were actually journalists from this other newspaper called the Singapore Monitor. So they were really big about Singapore music. And I think they, along with Chris Ho, you know Chris Ho? Who then became XO? XO. Okay, he was behind the Radio Fusion series of programs on Singapore music, like 8 Mile High and what have you. I used to listen to that a lot, along with BBC. Got into a lot of this alternative music scene and stuff. And we have, from the first issue, 1985, all the way to 2002, we have it up there at level 8, okay? So these are bound copies, various issues here. We have a few which are loose. It's really quite interesting because what they did was they not only supported local music, they actually championed the cause. They encouraged people to buy, to sell, to do whatever about Singapore music. And I think through them, right, we got this edge up to become more popular because in the 90s, we had like punk rock, Singapore punk rock, the underground scene becoming a bit more prevalent. It's now gone online. I think from 2002 it's gone online, but it's really quite fascinating. I was so excited because it's been a long time actually. So for most of you who grew up during that time, to actually see a physical copy of this book and then to relive your memories, which is what music is about, right? I think it's quite fascinating. So that's Big O. So that's one example of an iconic Singapore magazine. Oh yes, I forgot to say that back in the 80s, it was the only one around. There's nothing else. And it was probably the so-called best music magazine in Asia. So it says a lot about Philip and Michael Chia for being quite visionary in that sense. Okay. The third one here, you've seen some of their pictures before. These three gentlemen are very distinguished people. The man at the top left, Mr. Alex Abishkanathan, comes from a very illustrious musical family. He won the CMR in 1988, I think. Let me just check. Yes, 1988, yes. And he has given about 150 of his items to the National Library. 30 of these are actually handwritten scores. One of them is this score called Loy Krathong, which is the Thai festival, right? So he had rearranged it for guitar and was performed at the Esplanade in 2008 or something, thereabouts. And he also gave a lot of his teaching notes, because he was an educator of guitar and everything, so he gave a lot of that to us. It's in the midst of, it's already been digitized, isn't it? Okay, I'm not sure, it's probably in the midst of being digitized, but his other books that he gave us on guitar, choral singing, choral music, most of these are available in the library at Esplanade. That is like the performing arts library, so you can actually borrow some of these there. So that's Mr. A for you. The gentleman next to him, I think some of you may know him as well, Mr. Leong Yun Ping. The thing is, he gave a lot of his personal materials to the Yong Siu To Conservatory of Music, as well as to NAFA, because he's been a long-time educator in NAFA. So fair enough, he's given a lot of it there. But we do have some of his music tracks and albums in Music SG. So that's something good. And also a profile of him in Nora. Remember Nora? Okay. So he's one of the CMRs. He won that in, let me see, 1982. Yep. So again, he's a very well-known composer. He's known as the father of composers. And he infused a lot of his music with local flavors. He really wanted to infuse like Indian, Malay, Chinese type of music traditions into his music. So he's one of those who actually raised the bar for Singapore music. And the man, below that is Mr. Iskandar Ismail. the late Mr. Ismail. He also won the Cultural Medallion 1990 something, is it? Oh, 2008, yeah, very versatile musician. Did you know that his name back then, right, was Hang Loose Iskandar? I didn't know. And he was also, when he started out, right, he was very active in the jazz music scene. And he's a very talented man, multifaceted, he's a composer, arranger, music director. He was involved in a lot of the National Day Parade, Chingay, youth festivals, so many, many, many things. I think he never stopped. Right up to the last moment, he never stopped working. And we have his book there, Music Man, right, Iskandar Ismail. So do have a look. He donated, his family donated lots of things. We're very, very grateful. Almost 50 boxes of his personal items. A lot of these are scores. They're in the midst of being digitized, and hopefully sometime next year they'll be available. So it's something for us to look forward to. I'm very grateful to the family. And on that note, really, I'd like to encourage you, if you are musicians yourself, folks who are musicians or whatever, okay, please come and approach us, because we're very happy to receive your items. As a National Library, right, this is what we want to do. We want to preserve and collect forever and ever. As long as there is a forever, we want to just keep hold of those things, because it's our mandate to kind of preserve and provide some form of access to it. So hopefully it's in safe hands. So contribute to us. Joy showed you one example, but you can always contact us. Okay, moving on. Okay, I've talked a lot already, right? So anyway, just towards the end now. So basically, as I shared, there's lots of things available in the library. Some of them is physical over here. Some of them it's like in digitized platforms like Nora and Music SG. You can use the online public access catalog. You can get it online. You can just type whatever you want and you can find out which libraries have it, including the National Library. So the URL is up there. And also, if you've got any questions, for instance, if you can't answer anything today, right, please feel free to drop an email to Reference Point. Okay, and one of us or any of us from the National Library will be happy to answer those questions. And also, the URLs for the portals that we showed you earlier, they're up here.
All right,
Okay.
so any of you have any questions for our speakers tonight?
I'd like to find out more about the role of librarians in the music collection. Yeah, because I thought that's what the talk was about, actually. So, yeah.
The role of music librarians, I suppose similar to the librarians, actually, in the National Library, we do a variety of things like answer reference inquiries on general stuff, as well as maybe on music. We try to engage with donors, prominent maybe personalities or groups or associations who may have materials related to, say, the performing arts or music. And when we identify them, we actually engage with them. If they're willing to actually give us their things, we will go and have a look to do some form of selection. That's just one of the things that we do. We'll try and see whether or not it fits into our collection, they've got relevant materials about Singapore and what have you. If we are able to accept those, then we need to make sure the rights and all that are cleared. And then we'll process them and try to make them accessible, whether it's digitized or on-site in the library itself. So that's some of the things that we do. We don't really have dedicated people doing specific topics. Like the arts team, we have different folks looking after literary arts, performing and visual. So sometimes we do share duties and stuff. Yeah.
At the same time, as my subject focus has been a bit more on music, but at the same time I do take care of the performing arts collection as well. So as a music librarian, I actually have to go through the donated materials, and in the case of Iskandar's family, we received such a massive collection, and it was actually a bit in a mess when we got it. It was kind of like the whole storeroom came to us. So we really spent a lot of time going through every single piece of score, putting them together, making sure that we don't take too many pieces, because some of them are duplicates. So we identify the ones that are original as a priority, and then we remove those that are excessive, and after that we make sense of the collection by categorizing them into boxes that make sense to the public when they come to the library to use it. So at the back end, there's actually a lot of things that we do, from operations to networking to taking care of the collection, because all of these contribute towards building the National Library's collection that you all access at the front.
And to add on also, we try to maybe write about it. We can publish some things in Biblio-Asia, or we might have like a curated display or exhibitions about the donor, about the musical style. So there are various things that we can do, but it's a long process. There's a lot of things that happens behind the scenes. So we're not always like on counter and stuff. So it's quite varied. Like I said, there's never a boring day or anything. It's always something that we're doing. And it's quite fascinating. So Joy has been quite lucky to be working a lot of the music donations.
So when it comes to acquisition of, be it books, music scores from other genres and countries, is it also under the same department or organizationally wise?
Primarily for the National Library Board, because we come under the National Library Board, we've got public libraries and the National Library, right? So generally speaking, music materials on anything, general stuff in the West, in Asia, what have you, we have selectors who will acquire those to add on to our collection. For the National Library, our prime focus would be Singapore-related items. Yeah, to some extent also the region. Yeah, and over and above published materials, right, we also try to seek unpublished or primary material, so that's where your scores and manuscripts come in. So, but for us, really, National Library, we focus mainly on Singapore because it's really looking after our heritage.
I see. So there's another group that handles, like books which we go to the borrowing section to borrow music on. That's done by another group of colleagues.
Generally speaking, we do work together sometimes to give inputs into the profiles, what areas and stuff. But we do have a group of selectors who are very experienced in what they do, and they know really what's out there, the trends, in terms of publishing, and they will select for the libraries accordingly.
Thank you.
So just to add on, have you been to the Esplanade Public Library?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that is the collection, the main point for getting international music scores and international music CDs as well.
Thank you.
There was a gentleman at the back who had a question.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful talk. I'm very envious of your position right now. I would like to inquire about one of the earlier recordings that you have. I know a researcher on bangsawan had a recording on Penang bangsawan in the 1920s. Do you have something like about at that time, and do you have any efforts to acquire material, probably overseas, about Singapore music? From my experience, that there were researchers doing Malaysian music in the 1960s were actually deposited in the University of Indiana. But have you actually tried to locate people in, let's say, the US who have materials in Singapore and bringing them back?
Well, to answer your question, let me just address this on a couple of fronts. Firstly, the oldest piece of music we have currently in Music SG is a 1956 song by Bo Chit Hee. It's entitled 教令我们的母亲. It makes reference to Singapore as a Singapore motherland prior to independence, and it having like many having a landscape of rubber plantations. So we don't have music so old as the 1920s yet, but at the National Archives, they are making available this collection of vinyls donated by this guy called Roslad, and they are pre-war vinyls. I'm not very sure if there is bangsawan, but I can definitely give you the URL and you just take a look at their website and you see if there's something that you might like. So you just pass me your contact later. As for collecting materials, right now we focus in the local context. So we build relationships with Singaporeans, musicians, industry players, like for example Compass, Rips. We don't actually look for overseas owners of Singapore music at this point in time, because within the local context there is still room for us to go into. A lot of Singapore's older music from like 60s and before, they are now residing in private collections because they are vinyls and hardly available at record stores nowadays. And also they are facing the problem of degradation. So if you know of anyone with such private collections, you can also let us know and we will make that connection with them. Yeah.
Bangsawan, the only unique thing about Bangsawan is started way much earlier, even the late 18th. So usually they don't have recording on that. I think if you can, I'm not sure whether you have heard about this book, Rosalie, written by Saida Rastam. I think she covers a little bit of the Bangsawan era. And there's another book, the Musica, that also covers a little bit on Bangsawan. But in terms of the music, you must also remember that even the anthem of the Bangsawan that we know today, for example, the opening of the Bangsawan usually like ten, ten, da, 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 da. That is actually way back in the 50s. It's not even as early as that. And it was also taken from English music, which was used from radio. The transition from Bangsawan from the theatre, when the theatre dies down, the radio starts to pick up and it becomes popular in the radio. See, that's where you get some of the scripts of Bangsawan. Bangsawan actually got no scripts. it was a lot of improvisation. That's why a lot of materials of Bangsawan, if you go to the National Archive, there will be some oral history from some of the Bangsawan players like Sharif Medan, Amir Ahmad, and a few others. That is on Bangsawan. Bangsawan is actually a Malay opera which started in the 1800s.
Thanks, Jufri.
That was Jufri, who was our arts librarian as well, and he's our guru on all things Malay. So you got the right person. Thank you. But
Thank
please
you,
feel
Jufri.
free to ask us questions. We'll feed back to you the sources and all that. Thank you.
All right, so maybe I can take one last question if you guys have any. Okay, if not, then I shall thank everyone for coming down again. And please do look through our collections over there. And thanks again to Joy and Sharmini for the awesome presentation.
Thank you very much,
and good night.
everyone.